Want to know how to make these super cute Schleich horse blankets? Well, we're gonna make them today. First of all, you will need to know how to sew for this craft. Second of all, it also can be a little more complicated than some of my other crafts. I will have a different idea at the end of the video for those of you who do not know how to sew. So here is the craft supplies. Needle and thread and some pins. For my younger horse fans, always make sure to ask an adult before using sharp objects. You will also need a writing tool and bias tape. If you do not know what bias tape is, it is this like string stuff and it is folded several times, and I will obviously show you how to use this stuff for your horse blanket. Otherwise, I have a green highlighter and I have loved using a green highlighter. I don't know why, it just seems to work on all fabric types. You will also need snappers. You can also use Velcros, but I do not have some right now, so I'm going to use snappers. I have used all sizes of snappers. They work very well, but I would definitely gravitate towards the smaller ones for the foals and ponies. You will also need scissors. For my younger horse fans, please ask your parents before using sharp objects again. You will also need the fabric of your choice and the model horse you want your blanket to be for. You can use any type of fabric that you want. You can use fabric that's fray, like this one. You can use non-fraying fabric. You can use thicker fabric, thin fabric. It really does not matter. I have used all types of fabric. Just I would not do felt or fleece because they can be really thick. But if you want to, know my means would I stop you from using it. You will also need your sewing machine. So to start off by making your horse blanket, you are going to need a pattern. So sadly, I cannot give you my patterns because that's just not physically possible. So I'm going to tell you how I made these. So I simply just started off by tracing a Schleich blanket, cutting that out, folding it in half, and making sure everything was even. Then I traced that one and made it slightly bigger. This size would fit Clydesdales and Tinkers and other sizes that size. Then I also just made it smaller, so this size right here fits like Connemara's and the Daltmoors. And then we go smaller and smaller and smaller. So I hope this was helpful because now we're going to begin on making the Schleich blankets. So to simply start, lay your pattern down on your material and then simply trace all the way around it. Make sure you do this on the non-pretty side of your material. At least I like to do it on that side. If you want to do it on the pretty side, that's perfectly fine. So I'm going to go ahead and start tracing around this. Now once you have traced it, all you have to do now is just cut it out. Blanket is all cut out. Next thing to do is to pin on some bias tape. So to start off by pinning your bias tape, what I do is I simply just start to slightly unwrap it a little bit so it is still on its cardboard here, and just unwrap enough that I'll need, and then you simply just open it up the side, and then we're just going to start off with the top. You can start off with the bottom, but either way it's perfectly fine. And then I like to leave just a little overhang, just a little, not very much at all. And then simply hold it there, grab a pin, and poke it through. Just make sure to watch out for your fingers that are behind it, because poking yourself with a pin is no fun, because half the time I do end up bleeding. So then just simply bend it around here, and then pin another little pin. Now I happen to pin these kind of close together because this bias tape can be quite squirrely sometimes. So I'll just simply continue pinning it along until you reach the other side, and then you'll stop about right here. So then just continue on, and I'm going to continue pinning this. So I'll see you again in one moment. The top all pinned, Now simply just make a little cut right here by leaving a little extra as well. So once that's all cut, now we're going to begin to sew. A few more things before we start getting sewing. Number one, you want to go towards where the pin ends, so that means when you pull it out, you'll be able to pull the pin out. And second of all, you want to make sure when you start and when you end, you do a reverse stitch or a locking stitch where you go forward and backwards 3 times. I don't know why it's 3, it just is 3. So just want to make sure that. And another thing is that I like to go very slowly, so I end up using that side handle thing. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's that little thing on the side of the sewing machine where you can very slowly crank the sewing machine. I usually do that all the way along here just because the bias tape can be very slippery and I want to make sure I get it. Once you have sewn the top of your blanket, all you have to do now is just simply fold it over and repin it. So you're just going to repin it all along the same side again. And now that you have pinned this side, I would say it's definitely easier this time because it has already been really sewn. Now once again, make sure you do your back stitch or locking stitch on both ends, and this time I will be going a little faster because I will be using the foot, because once again I think it's a little simpler, and if you haven't noticed, the pins aren't as close as they were last time. So let's go sew one more time. So now that you have the top of your blanket here all sewn, it's all ready. Now we're just going to go ahead and round off the ends right here. It's just going to make them look super uber pretty, and well, it makes them look nice. I'm just going to go ahead and just very carefully cut this along here. Just like that, and that just makes the ends look super uber pretty. And there you have it, super uber nice edges. Now we're going to go ahead and repeat everything we just did on the top on the bottom half. So we will get started with that. A few more things before you start pinning. Make sure that when you pin it, you want to poke right through here where the top layer is. Just make sure the bias tape is high enough. Second of all, you want to make sure it's on the bottom half of the bias tape. Sorry, I didn't mention that before. And then simply just continue around all the way along the bottom, pin it, sew it, pin it again, and then sew it again just like last time. So be right back when that is all done. Don't forget to repin, resew, and round off the edges. Your basic blanket is all done. Now you just need to decide if you want to do snappers or velcros. Now I'm simply just going to explain how to do velcros because I sadly don't have any right now to show you how to do it. So I usually get sticky velcros, you know, those little velcro dots you can stick on. So I just simply stick one on this side and then one on the inner side. You can also flip this around either way. So you can have your blanket folded this way or this way. Just completely up to your choice. And then to just sew on the velcro is I'll simply just stick it under my sewing machine and do a full locking stitch, end up in the middle, and do another locking stitch in an X pattern. It just keeps the Velcro dot on and makes it super nice. But I sadly do not have any. So I'm going to show you how to sew on some snappers. The first thing I do to sew on my snappers is I'm simply just gonna kind of wrap this around my horse to measure where everything should line up. So just making sure this fits my horse just how I want. And now I'm gonna grab a marker, and I'm usually gonna start right in the corner on this side. So I'm just gonna kind of pull it out. So I'm gonna start on the top side right here. And now you can put a marker dot, I'm not going to. Then simply just pop off one of these snappers here. There's a little trouble getting the snappers off for me, but once you have your snapper, I like to put the one with the little up thing in the middle, the one usually facing out of the horse. That's completely my decision, so then simply put it right there. And now I'm going to go ahead and show you how to thread your needle. To start off by threading your needle, you want to take some thread. You want to make sure this is double the length that you want your thread to be. So just kind of pull this along here. And now you do not need a ton of thread. You really don't. But I always like to have a little extra just in case. So then just go ahead and cut that off. And then you have a lovely piece of thread. Now you just need to thread it on your needle. So it's very somewhat simple. Some would say it's easier said than done. You just simply need to take your thread and poke it through the hole in the top of your needle. You just need to simply get your little piece of thread to want to go in there. Now that you finally have your needle somewhat threaded, now you just simply need to go to the end. Just try your very best to line both of these up. Simply just wrap it around your finger, pull it to make the hole a little bigger, stick the extra thread through, and try to pull it up to the top here as the best you can. It's okay if it's not perfect. Any extra at the top here, I'm simply just going to kind of hold the knot and clip with my scissors. And there you go, your needle is threaded. Now I'm going to show you how to sew on the snapper. I'm going to try my very best to show you how. If it's a little too hard for you to understand, you can always go ahead and look up a different YouTube video on how to sew on a snapper. So to start off, you want to simply poke your needle through the first little hole. Just watch out for your fingers in the back and pull it through. Do not pull it all the way through just yet. Now you want to move over and poke it through the next hole. Now with that little extra thing that's sticking up, you just want to go ahead and simply poke your needle through that and pull it tight. Now your pin, now your snapper, so sorry about that guys, snapper will stay put. Now go ahead and poke your needle down through the first hole you poked through. Once again, careful of your fingers. Pull that through, and now you want to go back up that same hole. Now you're going to move over to the next hole. You're going to go ahead and go down and up and move over every time, and I usually go around twice. So I just want to let you know, so I'm just going to kind of show you guys how I do this. You're going to come back up through there, just like that. And then you're going to repeat this process twice, like I said, and you're also going to do this on the other side for your horse's blankie. Snapper is sewn down, I'm simply going to show you how to end it now. I simply just stick my pin through some of the threads, pull it through here. Sorry, you can't quite see it. There you go, and then I simply pull my needle through here, through the loop, and pull this tight. I usually repeat this twice, and I know there are other ways to end sewing on a snapper, so if you end up doing it differently, that's perfectly fine. This is just how I do it. And then simply cut off the extra thread and you have sewn on your snapper. Once again, repeat this on the other side, on the inside of your blanket. I like to wrap it around and measure that for my horse, so just wanted to make sure you remember that, and then your blanket will be completed. Just want to make sure I mention that for the second snapper, you want to make sure you have the little indent, because sometimes I have accidentally seen people sew them like this, and then your blanket will not be able to snap together. So make sure you sew this on the correct way. Just wanted to make sure that you knew that. Keep on having your snappers all sewn on. Now your blanket is all done. I hope you had tons of fun making the Schleich blanket with me. And as promised, now I'm going to show you how to make a different version for those of you who do not know how to sew. So here it is. So here is my suggestion for other people who don't know how to sew. I simply just cut out the blanket and added fingernail polish around the edges to make sure it doesn't fray. And then for the front of it, I sewed it. But if you don't know how to sew, you can always add a little dot of hot glue. And I simply always do this for my really smaller horses because they just can't have bias tape on the edging. And then I simply just pull over their heads. I know this isn't really realistic, but it's what I've got. And if you guys aren't really a sewer, I hope this helps you have an idea for a Schleich blanket. And they're so really, as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell your friends.